나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교. Hello everyone, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I hope you're feeling well and secure. We're going to continue with the Gosho from Nichiren Shu Overseas Propagation Promotion Association and all of their affiliate scholars translating Nichiren's writings into English and other languages for worldwide propagation, right? And of course, with as stalwart an effort as I can to keep the cultural biases, the ideas of other cultures translating into this culture and trying to make. This is the thing that annoys me about this. I'm always talking about is for some reason. The translator groups that are either Asian or British, in lesser cases, French, Italian, whatever, all for some reason take it upon themselves to alter the translations. And I mean alter for the purpose of more easily digestible terminology for the Western audience. And what that means is for the Christian or Jew or Muslim type, which Muslim is both East and West, I don't know. It's a mess. And these words like holy and faith, and they just don't belong in Buddhism, right? Now, I've talked about this before, so I won't go too deeply into it. But those words have a lot of charisma attached to otherworldly, mystical, magical kind of thinking. Like the word holy has this baggage of being from this omniscient other source imbuing us lowly little humans. That's so completely opposite of Buddhism. It doesn't belong anywhere in the translations, and yet we keep running into it here. All right. Question. You say that Bodhisattva Nagarjuna and the three Chinese masters did not include the Lotus Shingon Sutras in the difficult, there's that word holy, which I will say would be authenticated, miscellaneous category, but Genku arbitrarily included them. How do you know this? Right, so people are constantly challenging Nichiren's scholarship. Since the age of 12, he has been traveling through many Tendai as well as other sects, temples, had teachers, exploring all the writings of Shakyamuni. And he's very well versed, obviously. He's constantly quoting different sutras. And yet people still want to doubt, right? So, how do you know this? Answer. We don't have to look far for the answer, Nichiren says. It is found in the collection of passages on the Nembutsu. Right? The question they're asking about Genku is the statement that his collection of passages writing is about placing the Pure Land Sutras above these other sutras, including the Lotus Sutra, the Nirvana Sutra. the Shingon, which I don't know why that's in there, but I guess they're talking about an era of teachings. I've looked it up. I still haven't found a definitive answer, except that Shingon is a separate sect. So I don't know why it's hyphenated here, why it's included. It's not included in all the other translations that I've read, but in these, from this group and organization of overseas promulgation, see, it's in the name. The Nichiren Shu Overseas Propagation Promotion Association. So, very consciously, these translators are addressing what they think are Western rhetoric to get them to understand Buddhism. But what they do instead is inflict a bias into the translation that doesn't belong there, because they don't understand the Western mind. They think they do, and so they use these words to appeal to us, but all they're doing is confusing us. Ergo this channel, right? Question: what did you find in Genku's own writing? Answer: in Book 1 of the collection of passages on the Nembutsu, Genku quotes from the collection of passages concerning rebirth in the Pure Land by Dao Chao, under the heading of, quote, the statement by Zen Master Dao Chao establishing gates for the Holy Way and Pure Land, encouraging people to discard the Holy Way and put faith in the Pure Land. It is followed by Genku's opinion, and this is a direct quote from the books. We've got to find a better word than faith. Obviously, is another otherworldly, outside the self. Everything in Buddhism is about you and me. It's about our control of our life experience. There's no other mystical forces. Let's be clear about that. Buddhism is about the mind, this emergent property that comes from this physical apparatus that allows us to consider the nature of things through observation and experience. That's what Buddhism is. There's nothing holy about that. That's a word they're using to try to indicate that the teachings we're talking about are creditable, that they're authentic, albeit they're making commentary that isn't. And this is what Nichiren is hammering on. And faith? I picture somebody with, like Pigpen, with clouds around him all the time. Faith. It's confidence. It's determination. That's something we individually do. Faith is waiting for something to come from outside ourselves to save us. That's religion. That's foolishness. That's lack of responsibility. We control the destiny of our lives, the condition of our lives, the experience of our lives. Right? You remember, I don't know, some of you are old enough to remember Flip Wilson, a comedian. He had his own show for a while. And one of his famous sayings was, "The devil made me do it." Yeah. That's the flip side of faith. Right? You walk into a public place, you look at somebody, and you punch them in the face. And then you say, "Wasn't me. The devil made me do it." Have faith that your nose will heal. These words are so insanely they're just not real. They're ducking, if you know anything about music production, they're ducking responsibility to the point where people make causes based on their lack of responsibility and justifying it with words like holy and faith and the devil. It's incredibly foolish. I want to use other words, believe me. So, discard the appropriate, the authenticated way, the Buddha way, and put your confidence in the Pure Land Sutras. Why? Because it's something you'll never achieve, but you can't prove it, because I'm saying it'll only happen, not me, but this diatribe from the Pure Land says that if you just lead a good enough life, you'll end up in a place where everything's pure. Does that not sound like the Christian heaven? Does that not sound like your life is a turd and you just got to deal with it and smile through it so that when you die, you'll finally get a good life? How ridiculous is that? Oh my goodness. So, Genku's opinion. First, regarding the gates to the authenticated way, there are two, Mahayana and Hinayana. Well, that's arguable right there, isn't it? How many sutras have already taken that apart? Nichiren has pointed it out many, many times. But let's go on. Within Mahayana, differences exist between the exoteric, esoteric teachings, or provisional and true teachings. Okay, you're rubbing up against the truth there. How are you going to get out of there? Now, this collection of passages concerning rebirth in the Pure Land includes only exoteric Mahayana and provisional Mahayana as the gates to the authenticated way. So at least he understands that the early teachings are no longer useful. They involve practices that will never get you there. And yet he buys into that very zeitgeist, right? So let's go on. That is to say, Dao Chao rejected these as being roundabout practices needing an immeasurably long period of time to attain Buddhahood. Okay? They simply don't understand what's meant by birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, right? Death isn't the opposite of life. It's the opposite of birth. And birth isn't anything outside of life. Birth-death is a process of moment-to-moment mass, time, instantiation, manifestation of potential for a duration until it, like everything in the universe, arises, endures and decays, and then it dismantles. It goes away. Everything is temporary, impermanence. These are all key teachings of early Buddhism. We don't throw them away as we get smarter, as we get to know the practice better, but they have their proper place. Impermanence, dependent origination, nidana, all those things are teachings to get your mind wrapped around this idea that Buddha is a life condition, a knowing condition, a mental condition that's always existed, and that you, with a mind, can experience. So let's see. In the same manner, I believe, he says, esoteric Mahayana and true Mahayana should also be included as gates to the authenticated way. Now Nichiren goes on. Thus it is written in the collection of passages on the Nembutsu, although Zen master Dao Chao a collection of passages concerning rebirth in the Pure Land divided only the pre-Lotus Sutras into two gates for the authenticated way, and the Pure Land, Genku himself thought it appropriate that the Lotus Shingon Sutras, the true Mahayana, and esoteric Mahayana should also be included in the, it's everywhere, in the authenticated way. Just as those provisional Mahayana sutras preached in 40 or so years pre-Lotus Sutra. This is an arbitrary opinion of Genku, the four characters meaning, quote, in the same manner, I believe, end quote, show this. Accordingly, citing Dan Luan's difficult to practice and easy to practice ways, Genku again, by his own preference, put the Lotus Shingon in the difficult to practice way and divided the correct and miscellaneous practices according to Shandao. Genku again placed the Lotus Shingon in the miscellaneous practices. His numerous errors in defaming the true Dharma throughout the 16 chapters of the collection of passages on the Nembutsu originated from these four characters. He is wrong. He is how terrible it is. Genku's disciples defended their teacher's evil doctrine. It is customary for Buddhist sects to put similar doctrines into one group without definite scriptural proof or textual proof. Moreover, although the collection of passages on the Nembutsu puts the Lotus Shingon Sutras together with the miscellaneous practices and rejected all of them as inferior to the correct practice of the Nembutsu, it does not at all deny the doctrines expounded in those sutras, concluding that uneducated people in the latter day are ignorant and always suffering in the sea of life and death. Right? Life, death, life, death, life. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, not life, death. See, that's another error. Anyway, and it maintains that the easy-to-practice way is better than other teachings merely because the Nembutsu practice of calling the name of Amida Buddha, or the Buddha of infinite life, seems to be suited to people of such caliber. Who needs an easy-to-practice teaching? It does not consider whether the teaching is provisional or true, or whether or not it is profound. It's just something we can entertain people with so that we can move them around, take advantage of them, tell them whatever we want. In that way, they've reduced Buddhism to religion, a governance, a system of governing people and manipulating them and putting them in categories. They've totally left Buddhism. That is not Buddhism. Also, the use of the term miscellaneous practices does not mean rejection. Miscellaneous means impure. In other words, not holy. If we use the right words, we understand exactly what it means. It means not impure, but unauthenticated, made up. Besides, similar opinions have been expressed by various sutras, commentaries, and masters. For instance, we can find identical opinions in the, quote, essential collections concerning rebirth in the Pure Land by Venerable Genshin, a man of virtue on Mount Hiei in the past. His preface to the essential collection concerning rebirth in the Pure Land declares, quote, exoteric and esoteric teachings are not just a few. Many kinds of meditation on the phenomenal aspects and the nominal principle exist. They may not be too difficult for wise and diligent people to study and practice, but they are perplexing for the ignorant like myself. This is the reason I rely on the teaching of the Nembutsu. Oh, really? See, I'm one of the people. I'm one of you ignorant folk. You've got to understand this practice of the Nembutsu, of chanting Amida Buddha's name. Amida Buddha isn't real. It's a persona made. If I told anyone, whatever religion they practice today, that instead of Muhammad or Jesus or whoever we call Jesus or Ein Sof or whatever names various religions have for God, if I were to tell them, this story of pick a fable from one of those storied practices. I don't care, Cain or Abel or oh hell, let's just pick one out of Aesop's fables. Let's Rumpelstiltskin. And I told you that if you chanted and sang praises to and prayed to Rumpelstiltskin, that would lead you to the paradise beyond after you die. Do you think that could catch? Maybe with some. I grant you, we live in a strange world. We could start a cult of Rumpelstiltskin. Yeah? I don't know how popular it would be, but certainly would create waves of some sort, don't you think? I mean, even our famous journalistic media might seize on that story, right? But wouldn't the large majority of people, even though they're deluded by religious thoughts, not buy into that? Yeah? Well, that's in effect what's happening here. Shakyamuni is the original, the OG experience of Buddha, and he's trying to teach others how to do it for themselves. And as examples, he makes up lots of characters. We hear this defined different ways. Emanations of Shakyamuni. They're from his mind. They're from his imagination as expedient means. Here are stories, and he has many Buddhas, many Bodhisattvas, right, that he uses to exemplify our thinking, our mental processes, and our determination. Yeah? And Amida is one of those stories. He's a made-up character for the purposes of defining how the mind works. So we don't pray. See, these confusions come from that basic problem. Expecting from outside of ourselves some kind of mechanism of purification. This is exactly the definition of prayer. In obedience to some greater omniscient power, we will be bequeathed what we don't have as mere humans. Just listen to that. Think of that for a minute. How not Buddhist is that? Buddhism, original enlightenment, Nichiren, Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni, has been teaching from the get-go that this Buddha clarity, this Buddha mind, is your own mind. That's his entire breadth of teaching is about that. Get control of your mind. Right, loosely quoted, that reminds me of a quote from, was it the Lotus Sutra? It's something that's been repeated several times, though. You take control of your mind and lead your life, rather than letting your monkey mind, your samsaric life, lead your mind. Because you can, because that is the true experience of your life. You're making that life happen. And if it's not happening the way you like, it's because you're not in control of it. You're allowing yourself to react to it, which is the mechanism of possession, ownership, obsession, stress, anxiety, because everything is about gaining or losing. When the truth of the matter is, we are part of the same grand forces of the universe that is expressing itself all around us in momentum, not statically, constantly changing, just as you and I are. If you can flip that switch of perception, you will experience life to its fullest. There won't be limitations of, I don't own that, I do own this, I have to hang on to that, I need to get rid of that. That's all sorting through garbage because you believe the garbage to be real. In fact, it ceases to be a bag of stuff and garbage and ownership and loss and all of that when you understand that all of it is just a flow of energy, just like you and I. There's no gain, there's no loss, there's only experience. And that experience, unfettered, is complete, it's full. And it all comes from within your own mind. It doesn't come from anywhere else. So anytime you read something that starts to shift in that direction, raise a flag and make an about face. That is not Buddhism. Period. I rely on the Nembutsu. Liar. No, you don't. You rely on the Nembutsu for your manipulation and control of others. Oh, yeah, I believe that. Because you've mystified something totally unmystical. According to this preface, Venerable Eshin, a man of virtue in the past, also did not reject the Lotus Shingon doctrines. He just avoided them because he just thought that they were too arduous for uneducated people like himself to comprehend and put into practice. It was because he thought that he was not intelligent enough that he avoided the Lotus Shingon doctrines. Those are too hard to understand. I don't understand how I can instantiate Buddha right now in this life. How's that possible? No way. Okay. That doesn't make you a leader. Yeah? Furthermore, it is stated in the 8th of the 10-chaptered main discourse following the preface, quote, now, encouraging the practice of the Nembutsu does not intend to deny various other effective practices. It is only because the Nembutsu is easy for anyone to practice, regardless whether the person is a man or woman, high or low, is walking, staying still, sitting down, lying down, whenever, wherever, and under whatever circumstances, so on and so forth. And in the last moments of life, this Nembutsu is the most convenient for anyone to pray for rebirth in the land of bliss to the west. We don't pray. Rebirth in the land of bliss to the west? Like heaven's over there? Well, hell, if heaven's over there, let's just move. It's so ridiculous. It's mystical talk. This is why the Lotus Sutra is about self-practice. It's not that it's complicated. How hard is it to chant, I'm here, I'm present, Buddha? Na-mu myoho renge kyo. Wow, that was too hard. The purpose of Buddhism before he even became enlightened was to figure out a way to live this life fully. That's what motivated Siddhartha Gautama to search out a fundamental truth. And that fundamental truth is that we're all an expression of Buddha. but we can only experience it when we develop this apparatus of a sentient mind to experience that very truth. That's not after you die. That's not to the West. That's not something we hope will come to us. It's already there. The only reason it's called awakening is to awaken us from our delusions, from the very mysticism that we've adopted as ignorant people, ignorant of our own enlightenment. Let's see where we are. Oh, we got plenty of time. Looking at these passages, Nichiren continues, we see that although Genku's collection of passages on the Nembutsu and Genshin's Venerable Eshin's essential collection differ in the number of facets, 1 and 3 respectively, their purpose is the same, in that they choose the easy-to-practice way of all the scriptures of Buddhism in order to save ignorant people in the latter age. If Genku Shonin should fall into evil realms just because he called the Shingon and Lotus Sutras the difficult-to-practice way, Venerable Ishin, a man of virtue in the past, would also not be able to escape this punishment or this effect. What do you say about this? Well, I didn't notice that there was a question. I guess that's the question, though. Answer: you seem to be trying to save your teacher from his errors of slandering the true Dharma by referring to Genshin's essential collection. But on the contrary, you are doubling his error. Let me explain. Defining the significance of the first 42 years of his 50 years of preaching, the Buddha declared that the Sutra of Infinite Meaning, that it was, quote, like walking on a steep road with many obstacles, end quote. Then he defined the meaning of his preachings after the Sutra of Infinite Meaning as being, quote, like traveling on a straight, broad road without an obstacle. What came after the infinite meanings? The Sutra of Innumerable Meanings, the various translations of the same title. The Lotus. It's an introduction to the Lotus. These are the Buddha's words of division between two ways, the difficult and easy, or the superior and the inferior. Suppose anyone except the Buddha, from the top-ranking bodhisattvas down to the ignorant masters of the latter age, would arbitrarily make a division between difficult and easy ways, contrary to the Buddha's words in the Sutra of Infinite Meaning. Wouldn't such a person be like a heretic or a king of devils who preaches to deceive the people? There it is, exactly what I was saying. Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, one of the four ranks of Buddhist leaders after the death of the Buddha, divided the pre-Lotus Sutras into difficult to practice and the easy to practice in his commentary on the 10 stages. But he did not name the sutras preached after 40 years or so, such as the Lotus, as difficult to practice. Moreover, suppose the definition of easy to practice is what is easy to put into practice. The 50th person who, with joy, hears the Lotus Sutra transmitted from one person to the next, as expounded in the Lotus Sutra, right? This is directly from the Sutra, chapter 18, on merits of a person who rejoices at hearing this sutra, quote, end quote, finds the sutra 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100 million times easier to practice than calling the name of the Buddha of infinite life in the Nembutsu. So why are they saying exactly the opposite? Shakyamuni himself made it abundantly clear that the Lotus Sutra was the easy-to-practice, self-practice way of attaining immediate perfect Buddhahood, enlightenment, awakening. So why so much declaration and writings and misleading teachings saying that the Lotus Sutra is too difficult? You know, on the one hand, we hear this from Pure Land people. It's too difficult for us lowly humans. So chant this meaningless name and worry about having a good life after you're dead. How could that even be considered Buddhism? Right? But not only that, it is a word for word flip on exactly the teachings, the, shall I say, authenticated teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha in the Lotus Sutra. What could be easier? Moreover, suppose the definition of easy to practice is what is easy to put into practice. This story of the 50th person, this is about spreading the teaching of the Lotus Sutra, right? This is a quote within the Lotus Sutra about how this sutra, even after it goes through 49 other people, is so simple that the 50th person, upon hearing Myoho Renge Kyo, gets it. It's that simple. It's that easy to understand. It's difficult only in commitment, in determination, in confidence. But that's up to you and I. It's not up to somebody else to beat it into us, right? Or suppose we find easy to practice as having greater merit. The Variety of Merits chapter of the Lotus Sutra, chapter 17, compares the merit of practicing for 80 trillion kalpas, eons, the first 5 charity, observing precepts, perseverance, efforts, and Nembutsu meditations of the 6 paramita, through which a bodhisattva attains Buddhahood as preached in the pre-Lotus Sutras of 40 years or so, to the merit of having true faith or true conviction for a moment in the Lotus Sutra. For a moment. 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. For a moment. Just your curiosity about having somebody tell you, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, and you repeat it. Just that is superior to all of the teachings of the 40 or more years before the teaching of the Lotus Sutra. It says so in the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni's words. It declares that the merit of having true conviction for a moment is 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100 million times superior to the merit of the 5 practices such as Nembutsu meditations. In terms of both easiness to practice and greatness in merit, the Nembutsu meditation, in comparison to the Lotus Sutra, is the most difficult of the difficult and the most inferior of the inferior. It's absolute drivel, posing as the ultimate teaching. Besides saying the evil and ignorant depends on the profundity of the teachings, it does not matter whether or not the teaching is easy to practice. The more grievous error is, the more profound the teaching must be to save those who make the error. The precepts in the Agama Sutras, right, the early sutras, preached in the 12-year period, do not permit those who committed the 4 major errors, killing, stealing, adultery, lying, or the 5 rebellious errors, to attain Buddhahood in this life. Such Mahayana sutras as the Flower Garland Sutra, Hodo Sutras, the Wisdom Sutra, and the Sutra of the Buddha of Infinite Life, however, are more profound than the Hinayana Agama Sutras are. So they save those grievous error makers, when preaching wisdom, yet in preaching the Buddhist precepts, they do not allow violators of the 7 rebellious errors even to accept precepts in this life. Nevertheless, they deny both the attainment of Buddhahood and acceptance of precepts to men of Shravaka and Pratyeka with a fixed nature, and Ichantika, those without the Buddha nature. That's a grievous error right there, claiming that certain types of people, no matter how hard they practice, don't have the Buddha nature. Wrong. That's completely contradictory to Buddhist teaching, the authenticated Buddhist teaching. On the contrary, such sutras as the Lotus and Nirvana not only save those who committed the 5 rebellious errors, 7 rebellious errors, and slandered the true Dharma, but also men of Shravaka and Pratyeka with fixed nature, and Ichantika without the Buddha nature. Especially in the latter age of degeneration, many Ichantika are drowned in the sea of life and death, birth and death. How can they be saved? By provisional sutras such as the Sutra of Meditation on the Buddha of Infinite Life, preached 40 years or so before the Lotus Sutra. Ichantika without the Buddha nature and men of Shravaka and Pratyeka with fixed nature can only be saved by the Lotus Nirvana Sutras. And it says so in the Lotus, right? Masters who rely on the pre-Lotus Sutras cater to those who would be saved by such provisional sutras. Such masters err because they do not realize the importance of comparative study of Buddhist doctrines. Now that's quite a condemnation, but he has every right to say it, doesn't he? These great teachers that everyone's following and their suppositions about how what they're doing is superior to everything, he's giving them the grace of saying they don't know how to study. They don't know how to view the great work that 6th century Chinese monk Qi Tendai ordered these teachings in proper order in categories, 5 periods, so that you could track the building of knowledge to the point of the culmination, the Lotus Sutra. He didn't invent that order. He proved it in debate after debate, in scholarship after scholarship, in eschewing the stuff that didn't even belong. It couldn't have been Buddha's words. These were words of some monk who wanted to be assigned some honorable position in government, gain favor with an emperor or warlord, whatever, so that he could eat and have a temple, a house built for him, where he could proselytize his version of things. Right? This is very competitive. So obviously, he's trying to say they're not intentionally stupid. Although, I don't know if I would be that generous. As if they study at all, it's obvious. So, Nichiren continues, just from skimming the preface of the essential collection concerning rebirth in the Pure Land, it may seem that such sutras as the Lotus and Shingon are included in the exoteric and esoteric teachings, which are too profound for people of the latter age to understand. Examining the main discussions of the essential collection, however, in the 3 facils, a discussion on the comparative superiority in merit among various practices in the 7th item of the 10th chapter on the questions and answers, quote-unquote, can be found. Citing such pre-Lotus sutras and commentaries as the Meditation on the Buddha Sutra, the Sutra of Meditation to Behold Buddhas, and the commentary on the 10 stages, the Accumulated Treasures Sutra, and the Sutra of the Great Assembly, Venerable Eshin holds that the practice of the Nembutsu is supreme of all practices. Then, in the last set of questions and answers, Eshin states that the merit of practicing the Nembutsu, supreme of all the pre-Lotus Sutra teachings, is 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100 million times inferior to the merit of having true faith or true conviction in the Lotus Sutra for a moment. Okay. In the answer following this, it is declared that the Nembutsu is designated supreme of all practices within the limit of provisional pre-Lotus Sutra. Okay. It's not right, but thus you should know that Venerable Eshin's purpose for writing the essential collection was to educate ignorant people in the latter age to understand and believe in the Lotus Sutra. It was the same as the Buddha preaching provisional sutras for 40-odd years to prepare the people to have conviction with understanding in the Lotus Sutra. Therefore, Venerable Eshin, in the end, wrote the essentials of the one vehicle teaching to propagate the Lotus Sutra, and in the preface he wrote, "It has long been disputed among various teachings concerning which is true and which is expedient." Expedient not in the achievement of Buddhahood, but expedient in understanding the nature of the lotus, of the self-practice, of the attainment. Preparatory. Based on their own canons, each sect has contended to be the true teaching. I lamented this during the winter of the 10th month of the 3rd year in the Kanko period, 1006, when I was sick, saying, quote, "I have been fortunate to be able to encounter Buddhism, but I have been unable to thoroughly understand the intent of the Buddha. Should I end this life without understanding anything, I would never be able to grieve enough." End quote. So I had another, continues to be Eshin. So I had other people investigate the meanings of the sutras and commentaries, as well as annotations on them written by sages, and I myself studied them in search of the basis of the Buddha's wisdom, both provisional and true, without sectarian prejudice. Good on ya. Finally, I became convinced that the one vehicle teaching leading to Buddhahood is true, while the 5 vehicle teaching differentiating human beings, heavenly beings, Shravaka, Pratyeka Buddha, and Bodhisattvas is expedient. Having dispelled all the illusions of this life, I have nothing to regret, even if I die this evening. Wow. It's quite a stamp of approval, isn't it? Now, it's important to get the importance of this document and Nichiren's reading of it. Because there are those who would say Nichiren's just his own sect of Buddhism. But he is not. There have been other scholars ahead of him who have come to the same conclusion over and over again. This preface represents the true intention of the Venerable Eshin. When he cast away his sectarian prejudice, he must have also abandoned the Pure Land teaching. Convinced that the one vehicle teaching led to Buddhahood, he believed solely in the Lotus Sutra. Venerable Eshin wrote the essential collection in the winter of the 11th month in the 2nd year of the Yogan period in 984. Right? 22 years before he wrote this essentials of the one vehicle teaching. So he's allowed to learn, just like you and I are. But he came to the correct conclusion, didn't he? And the essentials of the one vehicle teaching in the winter of the 10th month of the 3rd year of the Kanko period, 1006, 22 years later. After a lapse of some 20 years, he preached the expedient teachings first and the true teaching later, just as the Buddha did, as well as Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, Tendai had done. You may be trying to redeem your teacher's error of slandering the true Dharma by referring to the essential collection, which is not at all similar to Honen's collection of passages on the Nembutsu. You say that sutras of similar doctrines are gathered in one group, but where is the similarity? The mutual possession of the 10 realms doctrine expounded by the Lotus Sutra is not preached in any of the pre-Lotus Sutras. The Flower Garland Sutra, which discriminates against two categories of people, Sravaka and Pratyeka Buddha, not allowing them to attain Buddhahood, does not have the mutual possession of the 10 realms doctrine. The Hodo Sutras and the Wisdom Sutras also do not preach the doctrine. Without the mutual possession of the 10 worlds or realms doctrine, the teachings of rebirth in the Pure Land preached by the Sutra of Meditation on the Buddha of Infinite Life is merely expedient. The attainment of Buddhahood and rebirth in the Pure Land preached in the pre-Lotus Sutras are unlike those preached in the Lotus Sutra. They were preached simply for the purpose of bolstering idlers, to get people practicing. Now, I want to say something about this. Where are we time-wise? Okay, I'll just wrap up with this. I want you to understand that these preparatory teachings were for the purpose of getting people to start thinking differently. Buddhism is what? Teaching about the mind. Attitude, intent. Right? How are you thinking about things? And how do you direct your energy, your thoughts toward things, something, being, behavior, thinking? So, to introduce the idea that you can manifest, instantiate a different quality of experience in your life, in your mind, is a pretty darn abstract thing to consider. In our era, it's not so difficult because of thousands of years of development, mental understanding, mind-body. We have so many things that we're exposed to from childhood that open our minds to consider other ways of understanding, other ways of experiencing things, right? We don't think about that all the time, but as Buddhists, it becomes more and more our focus, our locus of experiencing the world. So the first way to start explaining to people that that is even a potential is to term it like a location. It's easier to understand for a typical samsaric human being that we have sayings about the grass is always greener on the other side. Now, we're sophisticated thinkers. We understand that that doesn't literally mean that we go on the other side of a fence and the grass is greener. We're capable of understanding that that's a trope that we have an illusion of in our minds, that we're never satiated, that we never stop wanting more, and that we transform that energy into believing, convincing ourselves that there's always more on offer outside of where we are. Right? We do it in relationships. You could have the most ideal partner in your life. And I don't care what you want to base that on. Intellect, beauty, skills, whatever. And in a matter of time, whatever scale of time you want to use, you're going to get bored with that person. You're going to start to think, I'll bet there's even better than that for me. As we change and evolve, because we constantly are, our tastes are going to change. Our idea of perfection or comfort or love or sex or whatever is going to modify. And the partner we're with is part of that modification, and they may modify themselves in a slightly different way. And both of you will start looking at each other like, I could do better. Rather than investing time and effort into educating one another, expressing one another, finding middle ground, finding more opportunities than you knew existed. No, that's too much work. I'll just go find some prepackaged idea that I can have. It's better over there. It's what we do. That's why we shuffle our data, right? So if I want to impress upon you, you can change that in your own mind. Yeah, all that psychobabble. That's too much work, right? So if I want to convince you that land, that opportunity is available to you in your own mind, and you could recontextualize and understand your partner from a completely different perspective, and everything is already there in your own mind, it's a bit of a leap. It's not as easy. So this is why this rhetoric of idlers and people who aren't as committed to their practice. Well, if I want to get them to practice, I'll put that carrot over there, not within their own mind, because they won't believe that. They won't have confidence in it. They might believe it, but they don't have confidence in it. So they won't practice in order to experience that. Because the moment they think they don't, they'll just stop practicing. They'll lose their determination, their namu. Yeah? So that's what all the previous teachings are about. But by the time the Lotus Sutra is preached and spreads, it completely leaves all of that childish nonsense behind and says, now, just do it. Not only do you have the ability, it's been there all along. All you need to do is open the box. That process, that portal we call Gohanzon. And here's a mandala that doesn't have anything else on it. Just focus on this to give you some earthly thing to focus on, and chant, invoke your Buddha in mind. It'll prove to you it's already there. And you chant, and your eyes go jiggly, and the mandala looks like it's moving around, or it's hard, or really super clear. Everything else kind of goes and gets dim. That's all your mind shifting, experiencing clarity. You're starting to wipe that mirror clear, Buddha. It's seeing the world as it truly is. Some of us require more conviction than others. And that's why we study, to constantly bolster our conviction. Practice, study, chant. Instantiate your Buddha as much as you can. And when you wane, and when you're not sure, and when you have doubts, read a Gosho. Read a sutra. It'll engage you. The longer you practice, the more quickly that happens. And when you have that conviction, go chant. Yeah? All right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting this channel. Like, subscribe, share. It's a teaching tool. It's a learning tool, right? It's a confidence builder. That's the goal. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Download the audio podcast. Use the free website with all the info that's on it. If not for yourself directly, for tools to help you explain to others. Download those PDFs, print them out. Have something to say when somebody says, what is Buddhism then? What are you talking about? Have an answer. Yeah? Of course, ultimately, no matter what you're struggling with, in order to answer questions to those that are going to seek you out, chant with them. Open their minds, their Buddha potential, even though they don't understand it, their mind will, before you start blabbing. We're not trying to sell anything here. We're trying to guide people to their experience of Buddha. So the first thing we should do is open their Gohanzon, right? Here, chant with me for 5 minutes. See what it's like. And then don't just sit there and go, well, what was that like? They don't know. Did you? Oh, maybe you did. But give people the space to experience the Buddha in their mind. Yeah? And just prepare yourself as well as you can to give reliable answers. Don't just spit out memetics. And people see through that very easily. Oh, you're just repeating something you hear. Yeah, okay. Well, I'll see you around. Yeah, we know it right away. But if it's genuine, if you read information about all these things and you can cull from the language of whatever I've provided on the threefoldlotus.com website or from these videos, and you can use that and say it with conviction, honesty, they'll hear you. And you'll be doing your experience of life will launch, believe me. Your Buddha way will become more integrated with your samsaric bodhisattva way. Yeah? All right, that's it for today. I hope you got some good information on this. Always let me know how you're doing and what you thought of. Certain things maybe confounded you or opened up a door for you. Let me know in the comments or email me, tlksylvain.com, gmail.com. All right, let's make this Sangha work. Let's grow it so we can affect this very troubled world today. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next one, okay? Bye for now.